The stuff that Asuka, Io Sky, and Kairi Sane are doing backstage, it needs more love because honestly, it's so damn entertaining. Welcome to this week's episode of Raw's Key Takeaways. My name's Shah, welcome to the channel where we talk everything WWE. What I really want to touch on first is one of the things that caught me by surprise, and that is this whole segment that they're doing with Asuka, Kairi Sane, and Io Sky backstage. Of course, it involves Rhea Ripley at times. They're bringing in new superstars like Nikki Bella into the equation as well. Initially, I was like, I don't know what the hell they're doing, like they're doing this whole sort of bromance thing, but it's really turning into something super entertaining. Asuka's aggressive nature has just been top tier, and the way it translates so well onto the screen. And then when Kairi plays her sort of role of being the reasonable middleman, where she's trying to keep peace between both parties involved. And of course, Asuka, as she walks away, she's screaming at Kairi Sane. Like, that honestly is what sports entertainment's about. I'm really curious to see where this goes, because ultimately, you know, since Asuka's come back, I think she needed something to sink her teeth into. And of course, this is not necessarily the main event, or like, you know, she's going for a singles title like she has in the past. I'm still so happy that she's put in this position where she's doing something of substance and honestly entertaining the masses. The next key takeaway was all about AJ Styles. Now, of course, he went one-on-one with El Grande Americano. And before the match, during the commercial, he dropped a bit of a promo, a bit of an uncensored promo. Now, it's got everyone talking, got my intrigue as well, specifically because it's no news that AJ Styles' booking has been a bit meh for quite a while. Of course, he's been haunted by injury, sadly, for the last couple of years, I want to say. However, we know the stock of AJ Styles. We know how significant and how much of a game changer he is, irrespective of whether he's on SmackDown or Raw. It makes a massive change. And it's been cool to see him sort of work towards a mid-card title like the IC title. The whole program with Dominic Mysterio has been very entertaining. However, because that's not really led to anywhere, and it looks like Dominic's going to be focusing more on the AAA side of things, and Vikingo for now, it kind of leaves AJ Styles in a bit of a pickle. Like, what do we do with AJ Styles? Like, he's of course not a mid-carder. Has he played in mid-card quite a bit? Yes, he has. He can definitely wear multiple hats. Well, he quite literally did that with Dominic Mysterio. But I'm intrigued. I'm intrigued to see how they play this out on TV, on camera, because AJ Styles right now, he's got nothing of substance. And I think by giving him the opportunity to vocalize himself, kind of, you know, give him that sort of pipe bomb-esque sort of vibe where he can just say and do what he wants. And he's sort of breaking the fourth wall, acknowledging that he's not happy with where he wants to be. And of course, there's been a lot of online rumors. There's been discussions of his contract coming to an end, I believe, next year. He's getting up there in age. He's getting closer to 50. Like, what do we do with AJ Styles? John Cena and AJ Styles have been mentioned many times, you know, especially on the internet amongst wrestling fans, to say, listen, let's have one more shot at this great rivalry and feud that they had back in 2016, 2017. And we want to reignite that again. That's all great, but we're going to see Cena's out the door come the end of this year. Well, most likely. So once again, it leaves AJ Styles in a bit of a situation with what do we do next? He definitely needs a program that feels personal. It feels like there's some heat behind it. And if he's not going to be given an opportunity at any title, even if it is a mid-card title, then we need to get him to do something of substance. And I think they're doing that correctly right now by him acknowledging how unhappy he is, bringing the realism of his contract drawing near, and the end date for that, and creating this buzz around AJ Styles. Because Styles, for many years now, of course we know he's one of the best, but he's done the job for many other wrestlers. And I think now we're at a point where we need to utilize this man a lot better. Go back to France last year, where he did that heel turn, which didn't go maybe to fruition. I think a lot of it had to do with him sort of wanting to revert back to his old gimmick and his original theme song. By the way, I really enjoyed, I know it's probably me just saying this, but I really enjoyed the theme song from Def Rebel, the heel turn theme song. That really added layers to his character, because ever since he debuted, obviously he had the whole phenomenal theme song from CFO, I think it was. They still kept that, which is a great theme song. You don't need to touch it if it's not broken. But I think when they turned him heel, that rock song was top tier. But even with that feud with Cody Rhodes, although it was a good feud, we knew it for what it was going to be. And that was just going to be a filler feud for Cody Rhodes. And of course, he got a massive moment in France where, you know, fast forward a year later plus, and the people of France are still clamoring to sing the phenomenal song for AJ Styles, that they had to get him on the Raw episode to face Dominic Mysterio, which I think they should have honestly just passed on the title from Dominic to AJ Styles, because it would have given AJ Styles something brand new. He's never been IC champion before to sink his teeth into, and the feuds he could have around that, like something similar. I know he can't do the exact same thing as like Sami Zayn and John Cena, because Sami Zayn's officially reinstated this whole US Open title challenge thing on SmackDown. I don't know if it's going to be permanent, if it was a one-off with John Cena. But if AJ Styles could do something similar with the IC title, that would have been an indication that we're utilizing AJ Styles correctly. So again, it goes back to, if we're not going to give AJ Styles a mid-card title, or any title for that matter, we need to give him something personal, something of substance, something that lights a fire under his ass, and it also gets us invested. Because let's be honest, AJ Styles is one of those figures, no matter when he pops up on the screen, whether he was a heel and the heel turn wasn't going amazingly, or whether he's doing a sort of small scale program and he's working with like the mid card, or he's in tag matches, he still gets a loud pop every single time. Like, no matter what arena, no matter what show he's in, he's always getting the AJ Styles chance. So we know, irrespective of whether he loses matches or wins matches, or he's champion or not champion, he cemented himself in that category of being one of the top dogs. And the benefit of having someone like that on the roster is, at any point you can just press the push button. You can press the green button and say go, and you can push AJ Styles into any storyline and take it to the next level. And I think this could be the start of that very thing I mentioned. So let's just see. I'm hoping this continues. I'm curious and keen to see this, and I like how they kind of did it during the commercial break. It kind of gives it that extra realism. Whoever AJ Styles is referring to, like, you know, obviously he's talking about the board and management at TKO and everything like that, aka the Authority. By him delivering that promo when it wasn't live on air, it was, you know, of course in the commercial ad, it gives you that sense of, like, similar to how they had the whole program with Karrion Kross, you know, a lot of his stuff was like backstage, or when he was up in the stands and he was doing some of the mic work there. Like, it adds this level of like, okay, this guy's not actually getting the focus. Management's not putting him where he should be. So he's basically taking the initiative upon himself to acknowledge this, break the fourth wall, and kind of do what he's not meant to be doing. So I like that touch there as well. I really hope they continue to build upon this week by week by week. Of course, they don't need to turn AJ Styles heel again. They can keep him face. I think he's one of the best baby faces. He's a great heel as well. But just naturally, because he's loved so much by the crowd and the audience, and he's getting up there in age now, obviously he's a complete veteran in that sense, we can really milk him for what he is, and that is truly one of the best to ever do it. On the mic, in the ring, sounds like I want to say CM Punk, on commentary as well, but honestly, AJ Styles can do absolutely everything. So I'm really curious to see where this goes. And again, I'll touch on what a lot of people have been mentioning online is, in a parallel world, this would have been ideal to set up a program between AJ Styles and, of course, Triple H. Now, I'm aware Triple H, of course, can't wrestle. He's fully retired, and, you know, he's taken the sort of executive position. So that begs the question, perhaps it's not an entity, it's not a single entity, but it's bigger than that. It's perhaps the powers that be is what AJ Styles is going to be fighting again. And considering it's that, perhaps they get someone in to do their dirty work. And when I mean them, I'm talking about management, I'm talking about whoever you want to put on screen. Like, similar to what we had with the Authority like 10 years ago. You had Seth Rollins doing their bidding. Before that you had Randy Orton. If we get someone like that, maybe doing the bidding of whoever you want to label as the power that be, you know, TKO, management, or whatever you want to call them, give them a new name this time, I'm up for that. I think that's something that's also missing as well within the WWE right now. Of course, we had the Final Boss, you know, last year, had that impeccable run, and you felt that sort of authoritarian figure sort of looming over the WWE, especially superstars as well, and saying, look, if you join me, I can give you this. If you go against me, I'm going to make, you know, your life hell on earth. All that sort of stuff. I think they can do that perfect program with AJ Styles. And typically with those programs, you always want a white meat, hot babyface. Like, we had Cody Rhodes go up against the Final Boss last year, and everyone was chanting, of course, we want Cody. Now, it works very similar in the sense of having AJ Styles, because he's such a beloved fan favorite, by utilizing him in this story and finally getting someone that represents this authoritarian regime that's holding AJ Styles down. If they bring a wrestler in, even if it comes from NXT or someone brand new, but they're doing the bidding, and like they're the sort of poster boy for this management group that's sort of controlling the WWE and keeping AJ Styles where it is, I think that will be so entertaining, and that'll be such a good addition to Raw. Next up, I want to touch on AJ Lee's promo. Now, she rocked up with the IC title, which I thought was a really nice touch. It adds more depth to the feud between specifically Becky and AJ Lee. Of course, there's a wider feud going on between the couples that I'll get to in a second. But I think the fact that AJ Lee walked away with the IC title and showed up with it, it kind of gave us that clear visual that this woman, of course, she is here to avenge her husband and, you know, even the odds with Becky Lynch. However, with the title being around her waist, it kind of gave us that visual again, a remembrance of who this woman was. Like 10 plus years ago, she was really, you know, obviously during a whole different time and era, she really was a trailblazer. She really did stand out from a lot of the superstars. I mean, she still kind of stands out today. And of course, women's wrestling has evolved leaps and bounds to where it is today. Thank God for that. But AJ Lee back in the day really stood out in terms of how her promo ability, the way she sort of just carried herself as well. Of course, she's got a bit more of a smaller stature, which works in her favor. The sort of short feud she had, and it integrated with the males as well, like John Cena at one point. You had the whole situation with Kane when she jumped on his sort of waist. Like she really could wear multiple hats, and since she's come back, we're sort of immediately reminded that she was unique then, and weirdly, she's still unique now. And the IC title reminds the WWE universe that this is a woman who's, yeah, I mean, right now she's here with the whole CM Punk and Seth Rollins and Becky Lynch program, but the long term, this woman is back, and she's back to be one of the top players within the women's division. So I love that touch with the IC title. Now, of course, we always have questions when someone's gone on such a long stint away from the WWE, you know, have they still got it, whether it's in-ring or whether it's promo. Of course, we got a chance to see what AJ Lee's like in terms of a promo 10 plus years away from the ring. And I'll be honest, I mentioned this on my SmackDown review as well. If you haven't checked that video out, please give it a watch and a like. It's my first ever video. I'm trying to grow the channel. I'm trying to get to 1K subscribers by the Royal Rumble. So I would love and appreciate any of you guys' support. But as I mentioned on the SmackDown review as well, when AJ Lee came out during her entrance, of course, it was a great, grandiose pop and all. And she looked super comfortable. I know when someone's done it for such a long time, it's kind of second nature to them, but you have to understand it's been 10 plus years that this woman's been away. Unlike the CM Punk, I know he was, you know, technically away from the WWE for 9-10 years, around a decade. But the difference is that CM Punk still had a couple of years of getting the rust off of his body and off of his ability to cut promos via AEW. He came back in 2021, so he had a couple of years to kind of get the cobwebs off of him. Whereas AJ Lee, from my recollection, she's done nothing wrestling related or directly wrestling related. So being thrown straight back into like the upper card, really, with like the likes of obviously her husband, Seth Rollins and Becky Lynch, can be nerve-wracking, but honestly, she looks so comfortable on SmackDown. And this week on Raw, she was given the task to cut the promo and build up this feud that she's having with Becky Lynch. And honestly, she did such a tremendous job. Like, I was instantly reminded of how charismatic she is. And I don't mean charismatic in the typical normal sense. I mean it in a very indirect way as well. Like her small details, like her mannerisms, her facial expressions, of course, her iconic little hopping around the ring with a funky theme song, like all of that just works. Even like her stance as well, the way she stands and all these things, like she's still so well in tune with the character. Or maybe she's just like this 24/7 in person, I don't know, I haven't met her. And then when she grabs the microphone, her promo cadence and her style is very unique, very similar to, of course, how she was 10 plus years ago. But honestly, it was a breath of fresh air. Like the power behind her character when she delivers the promos is it's tuned up, you know, it's got the subtle comedic elements to it, it's got the sarcasm a bit to it as well. And I like how she was able to be vulnerable. She sort of brought up and sort of addressed the elephant in the room as to why she left, what she was dealing with, and how she overcame things. And of course, you got the lovely therapy chants throughout the arena on Monday Night Raw. And then ultimately, we got Becky Lynch come out. They had a great back and forth. Seth Rollins came out and tried essentially getting the IC title away from AJ Lee to give back to Becky Lynch. And then we had a really cool moment when CM Punk just comes literally out of nowhere. He bumps into Becky Lynch and then he just makes his way in, tries the GTS Seth Rollins, and Seth Rollins is out. And that's where they sort of demand, listen, if you want your IC title back, AJ Lee says, we're going to have a mixed tag team match at WrestlePalooza. So overall, this segment was top tier, and I think welcome back indeed for AJ Lee. How comfortable she is during her ring walks, her entrances, and now we officially know as well how she can still go on the microphone. Again, she still is so unique today. With the saturation that we've had, and when I say saturation, I mean it in a positive sense. I mean the sort of influx of female talent we've had over the last few years, head and shoulders completely differently and above from where we were 10 years ago. You would have thought, okay, we're kind of getting to a point where it's hard to kind of stand out now within the women's division, because we've got such a range of different personalities, characters, wrestling styles, promo abilities, everything is so mixed. But you still really realize AJ Lee stands out and still has a unique personality even when she delivers on the microphone. So I really enjoyed that. In terms of the actual mixed tag team match as well, I'll be honest, I'm not a massive advocate of the concept of mixed tag team matches. I think once in a while they have their place. But I think a lot of the time we just go back to like the instant ones that you go back to. Of course, you got Becky Lynch and Seth Rollins during the dark times of 2019, where they went against Baron Corbin and Lacey Evans, which was just a absolute like, yeah, you know what I mean with that one. And the other one that I remember is from WrestleMania. You had Nikki Bella and John Cena go against Miz and Maurice. That one was a bit more entertaining, but it still was just like, always feels a non-canon, if that makes sense. But this really feels like it's canon. This really feels like it's part of the lore. It's part of the upper sort of, card lore, and the lore of the sort of superstars that we have involved here. The CM Punks, the Seth Rollinses, of course the world titles involved in there as well. You got the IC title of the women's division getting plentiful love, plenty attention, and care here as well. And at the same time, we're building up those individualistic feuds. Of course, CM Punk and Seth Rollins has been building since freaking November of 2023 when CM Punk came back. So, but it's one of those beautiful feuds where it's like we just never want it to end. We can always fall back on it. When people complain, say, "Oh, I've seen this feud for so long," it's like, mate, sometimes we complain when we don't get long-term storytelling, and then when we get long-term storytelling, we complain. Just like the whole Bloodline stuff when it was in the peak of when it was happening. Yeah, we had our gems and stuff, but people were like, "Can we just get over and done with Roman Reigns' title run and everything like that?" And it's like, you look back now, you're like, that was literally the best thing of the modern era. That's what kind of got us where we are today. I'm not saying it's going to have the same effect, but I'm going to say the forbidden, blasphemous words of let Papa H cook. I know he doesn't always cook. Sometimes he cooks us a complete shit sandwich. But I think this time we're onto something special, considering it's a mixed tag team, which doesn't always bang, it doesn't always slap. But I think this one, ladies and gentlemen, is going to slap. So I'm looking forward to WrestlePalooza. In terms of what they do moving forward from this match, we're probably going to go into a feud between Becky Lynch and AJ Lee, specifically just centered around them two and the IC title. I think by default, the best person to dethrone Becky Lynch for the IC title. That Becky Lynch has done a tremendous job in building up, the reputation, the credibility of that championship, and all the work she's been doing this year. Eventually to lose to AJ Lee, and then the championship going from Becky Lynch to AJ Lee. Really, the IC title is getting plenty love. And it's going to be really established up there, just like, the men's IC title. Throughout history, of course, has had some duds in there, but like, you go back to the old school times of the IC title being held by your Chris Jerichos, your Honky Tonk Mans, and obviously in modern era, you've got your Gunthers as well. And on the men's side of things, naturally, you would think there's going to be a program between CM Punk and Seth Rollins that will probably continue. But you've got, the other chaps there lingering. You've got your LA Knights there. I know he's caught up with some other stuff I'm going to get into in a second with the Usos. And then you've got, the OTC, Roman Reigns, that right now he's gone to, film Street Fighter to be Akuma in it, which is going to be cool. But in a couple of months, he's going to be back. So, past War Games, most likely we're going to be seeing Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins have a program. And if you got CM Punk in the equation again, then we're kind of just rinsing and repeating what we were doing at WrestleMania, which I don't hate, because that feud and that match was just absolutely beautiful. Even the package that they had on Raw, I think it was Machine Head's song Sail Into the Black they used for the promo. Like, mate, it just gave me that old school vibe, WrestleMania 17 sort of promo with Limp Bizkit and the rock sort of genre that was involved to hype up and create these packages. The package for this match, not just the promos, but the package for the match was great. So yeah, I'm getting sort of distracted here because I'm so excited about the thought of, all these personalities coming together again. But really, do we want to repeat exactly what we did at WrestleMania early in the year? Probably not. I think we finally need to give the sort of individual feuds here, and I think nothing is greater, nothing is more deserving than an individual feud, one-on-one. There's no other parties, obviously, other than your Paul Heymans or whatever, but no other active wrestler within the equation, but just Seth Rollins versus Roman Reigns. And if you slap that world title, that world heavyweight championship on the line, I think, again, we're taking that world heavyweight championship and we're putting it to levels and stratospheres that is never achieved before. And lastly, I'm going to wrap up with the Usos, specifically Jey Uso, but I want to touch on Jimmy Uso, of course, making his, I was going to say his return, but he's kind of, I guess, transitioned over to Raw now. We've had talks and rumors for a while now. The Usos are going to be back together. We kind of felt like Jey Uso had his time in the sun. And what I mean by that is the main event picture. I think he's hit whatever he was going to hit in terms of like a ceiling. So I thought, okay, we're kind of going to go down the traditional route of having the Usos back. Perhaps they're going to back Roman Reigns when they're going to keep the Vision busy. And when Roman Reigns comes back, he's going to go after Seth Rollins. You're probably going to have the Usos keeping the Brumbrons busy, which is a formula that's worked many times in the past. Sure, it's a great program. However, it looks like they're going down a slightly different pathway, which I am completely open for. We're starting to see glimmers, of course, of Jey Uso have this sort of crisis, this ego identity crisis that he's having. And this really came to light during the backstage segment between Jimmy Uso and Jey Uso, when obviously the intro of the show, the Usos opened up, which was amazing seeing them together. They had their sort of back and forth of the Brumbrons. LA Knight was interjected into this program, setting up a main event match for the evening. And you had Jimmy Uso confront Jey Uso backstage. This was midway through Raw, and they discussed what the plan of action is. And you had Jimmy outright say, listen, we got to hang around. We're not going to go. We're going to go back LA Knight and everything like that. And at that point, we had Jey just say, hey, I've got to look out for myself. And there was a lot of dialogue there from Jey Uso that mimicked Roman Reigns' aura and his way of speaking. And I'm not just talking about his OTC period. I'm talking about when he was legit the original tribal chief. I'm talking about, that 4-year run from 2020 to 2024, basically when he was full-blown heel. His narcissistic ways, his arrogant ways, his self-centered ways. Of course, Jey Uso is not to the level of that, but it's like he's having this sort of split between himself. I think if they bleed in to this angle, how although he achieved superstardom and he became world champion, he won the Royal Rumble, he defeated Gunther, and all these things and all these accolades, but he never, of course, was really the man, and there was a lot of shade thrown towards him during that time. We even saw it in the Unreal episode on Netflix, management saying, listen, we're strapping a rocket to your ass. If you can't pull your weight, you can't get your breathing in order and all that sort of stuff in check, then we've got to move on. So if they bleed all this in and it's sort of affecting